guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. It's from a guy, sounds like he's in his early 40s, and he shares his story about his absolute nightmare of a marriage that he went through for like 17, 18 years. And he did it all those years to protect his daughter. You're going to see, guys, in this story how when he got together with his ex-wife, back in those days, based on where he grew up, his upbringing, all that, pretty much you get married, stay loyal to your wife or husband, grow a family, roots, all that, and you stick through the hard times, blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, those old-fashioned standards don't work out so well in today's world, given what you all know. And as you all are well aware that if a marriage doesn't work out, generally speaking, the guy gets raked over the coals in the family courts. The kids usually go to the mother. She gets half and all these other things, and the guy's screwed, right? And in this particular story, you're going to see that that's exactly what would have happened if he would have left. So he stays in this marriage from hell to protect his daughter. And believe me, his wacko wife, and she truly is evil. I'm not denying this. I'm not exaggerating in any way. She is. Substance abuse problems, horrible treatment to him and all that. But he plays it well that basically one day he will be free. One day he will come out on top. And you're going to see here, he definitely does. And I might add, even his daughter helps him out in this process. That goes to show how bad it is with his now ex-wife. So it's a story that's definitely tough, but this guy does come out on top, and it definitely is an example of a father's love for his child and what men will endure to protect their children. And believe me, he does endure a lot, but he gets her back, the ex. So it starts off, he says, hello SSM. I found your channel recently and have binge listened to your content for a week now. I like how you are helping men to navigate the world that we find ourselves in this day and age. Unlike other content creators, you're open to stories and questions from the average viewer without having to go through a paywall. That is what I call a person fighting the good fight. That's why I'm here every day, sometimes twice a day, and I love what I do, love helping you guys out. So until I'm kicked off or maybe I lose my voice or something, I'll keep doing this. This may be long because it was a 17-year ordeal and there was a lot of time to cover. I know you probably can't read the whole story in your channel if you choose to share due to time. Well, you're in luck, bro, because I'm doing the whole thing because this story is a good one. So for you guys that are seeing how long this is, stick around. It's definitely a good one. Grab a beer. Grab some popcorn. He says, however, if you choose to share, you'll probably condense it. The reason I'm writing this is in the hopes a young man doesn't make the same mistakes I did, or that a man who is trapped in the same situation as I was can learn something and have a bit of hope. My fellow men need to understand that abuse is not always man or man on woman. I would say that the abuse visited on men by their significant others is probably just as common and more insidious because there's little awareness. Yeah, and wait till you see all the crap this guy goes through. Also, men don't report their abuse for the fear of being emasculated or unbelieved. Both are true. However, I promise once a man makes his escape, he will thrive. Unlike many abused gals who curl up and blame the abuse on all their faults, that is the greatness of men. Our minds can take large amounts of trauma, and once we are in an environment that is conducive to growth, we will push forward and use that trauma as fuel for our endeavors. Enough of that, on to the story. Good intro, but yes, I agree. Men can go through a hell of a lot of shit, and we can use that to push us forward and thrive. And that's exactly what this guy does. So for you guys who are going through any tough times right now, you can get through it and you can turn things around. It may not happen overnight, and it may be difficult, but you can do it. And you will hear this example of a guy that does it. He says, back in 1999, I was in the military and was living the dorm life as a young enlisted man. I never lacked for female companionship and quickly gained a reputation as a ladies' man. Not so much as a player, but as a focus of female attention. In mid-2000, I met the woman who would become my ex-wife. The SEX was amazing, and she wasn't too bad looking either. She was running her own successful business, and she seemed to have her life in order. Keyword seemed. I thought I had caught the catch of a woman. We dated for 1 year, and I proposed. Smack. 1 year, you don't know who she is. 1 year, anybody can put up an act. And I know this guy's aware of this now, but for you guys watching, 1 year, not a chance in hell. Years. years and years before you even consider doing that. And if you think that, that you'll lose her, well then fine, lose her. Because the right one will wait. You need a long time to get to know who that gal is. Otherwise, you could spend decades regretting it. The first mistake, I know, but that was how I was raised. In 2002, I got hurt badly and had to move in with her because I needed assistance and I was far from my family. This woman was my fiance and I figured I could rely on her. This is when I started to see the cracks in her personality. She stressed over things that were not big issue and became snappy and sometimes downright mean when she had to help me with daily tasks. So you got injured in the military, and when you need her to help you, because you would certainly help her if she needed help, she was getting bitchy and rude and difficult. There is a big red flag to show you why you should have ran, because you aren't married to her yet. There's a sign about her true character. This is why you spend years getting to know somebody before you actually propose and get married. I was still enlisted at this time, so I was drawing my pay, though I could not actively serve. The military had me on heavy doses of painkillers and often wondered if I would have still married her if I was sober. In 2002, we got married. I had surgery earlier that year, but was still recovering, so I was still on my pain medication. On our honeymoon, we did not consummate the marriage, and that started the log spell of a dead bedroom. The year after we married, it was once a month thing if I was lucky. Despite the infrequency of the sex, we conceived my daughter. So notice in the beginning, he said in the beginning, and I'm looking at it right here, the sex was amazing, and she wasn't bad to look at either. Once he was roped in, then all of a sudden, never mind. It's a stereotype, but it's pretty dead on. Now from here, I must give you some background on where I grew up and what type of family I had to understand the mindset that I had back then. I was raised in the middle of nowhere. The closest town big enough to support a hospital or even a fast food restaurant was 80 miles away. It is a very old school area where men were expected to be masculine and women were expected to be feminine. The people are completely fiercely independent and a little rebellious when it comes to authority. Texas? They handled their own problems and asked nothing of others. Income was high in this area due to oil, cattle, and other production, but the cost of living was low because of how far away amenities were. Yeah, sounds like Texas. It was nothing for people to marry 18 years old and spend the rest of their lives together. Most of my friends who married others from that area of several thousand square miles are still married to this day. You were like your own little country on your own out there in the middle of nowhere. Those of us that went out and married outside of that area are all divorced. I was raised that family was everything, but your children were even more. They were your legacy, and their well-being came from you or anyone else. To leave or neglect your child was dishonorable, and you were no longer a man. In my family, the ability to raise a child or children was of the highest order and an honor not to be taken lightly. Your entire life is spent caring and raising the best person you could, that once they are on their own, it is your duty to grow wealth with what is passed to you so you can pass even more wealth to the next generation. This formula has worked well in my family, and we have over the generations built massive generational wealth, but are raised adults who have not lived in the privileged wealth until later in the years. So children and your legacy is a big deal, if not the most important thing. So you really got to work for it and earn it to enjoy that wealth, but you got to do it, work hard, and essentially earn it and prove it in the early years. And that's good that at such a young age, say 21, the family wealth isn't given to you, because a lot of people would piss it away on bullshit, and that would be it for the generational wealth. You got to earn it. Anyway, before my daughter was born, my wife lost grip on her business, and I was medically discharged from the military. The military sent me with a very nice severance package and paid for the birth of my daughter after my discharge. Plus, I was receiving VA disability until my recovery was complete. So we weren't hurting for money despite my ex's wife business going down the toilet. My ex-wife's attitude got worse, and I chalked it up to the pregnancy. She also became meaner and seemed to pick fights whenever she could. What a great situation. When my daughter was born, I was the first one to hold her, and I fell in love. She looked just like all the girl babies in my family. I knew that this child was mine and that nothing would stand in the way of me being her father. This is when things went really bad. My ex-wife had trouble postpartum depression. When she didn't want to have anything to do with the baby, I took care of all her needs. Though I knew it wasn't right that a new mother was acting this way, I thought to just give the ex time. Then one day my ex packed up and left. She said that she was going to another state where one of her friends lived to clear her head. My daughter was maybe a month old at the time. I heard nothing from my ex for several weeks. She packed up and abandoned you and your daughter, and the daughter's 1 month old. What about breast milk and all that? I mean, I don't know shit about kids, but I gotta wonder about that. Great. Great mother, great wife. During that time, one of my military buddies came over and we started to talk, and I realized something. The woman she was going to visit had a stepson, and the ex had dated before she met me. He urged me to get a paternity test, and though I knew my daughter was mine because she looked like many of the girls in my family, I did. Turned out she was my daughter, and I was relieved. Well, thank God for that, man, after what you endured in this story. The ex came back about a week after the paternity test. She came through the door and told me to leave. When I tried to find out what was wrong, she called her family and they came over threatening me. She said she was going to call the sheriff's office and tell them she is afraid of me and I hit her. I left that night and stayed in a hotel. What the hell, dude? Disappears on you for weeks on end, you and the newborn baby, and then shows up and tells you to get out of your house? You gotta be shitting me. And makes threats. And again, we all know darn well she can go to the sheriff's office and say all those things, and who do you think they're going to believe? It's terrible. And this guy, a good man, is taking care of the daughter. I'm sure looking back, he wished he didn't rush off to propose to her after 1 year and really, really got to know her and see her true colors. And I'm not giving this guy a hard time. I'm just pointing this out. So for you young guys that meet some girl and the fireworks are going off and you think it's amazing and it's a big freaking movie, take your time. Otherwise, you could be in a situation like this. I stayed in the hotel for 2 weeks trying to work it out. Once I figured out I was going to go broke living in a hotel, I decided the best thing was to head to my home state where I had family to help me. As soon as I came home, feeling I had failed as a father, my father told me it was time to go to war and get my daughter back. My family started hiring lawyers, PIs, and others to work on the case. I took comfort that I had so much support. For the next 2 months, I worked on myself, getting a good paying job so I could send my ex money for my daughter. In the third month, my ex called wanting to move down with me. Apparently, she was having problems surviving. Imagine that. She needs you back because she needs a paycheck. I reluctantly and stupidly agreed. She came to where I was and she was terribly thin. Thankfully, my daughter was healthy and happy. When we sat down to talk before she unpacked her stuff, I told her the only reason why she was here was because of my daughter, and if she wasn't tied to her, I couldn't care less about her. I laid the ground rules. She would not contact her old friend in Colorado. Also, I would have the passwords to her emails and whatnot. I told her this was the price of starting to gain my trust. I would not keep her from anybody except her friend and stepson in Colorado. I told her breaking this would see her out in the street without another word said. Well, I'm glad you said these things. Unfortunately, this woman, if she hasn't picked up on it already, she has all the power because she knows darn well, or will find out, the only reason you're staying there is because of the daughter, and that's her leverage. And let me tell you, gentlemen, the amount she uses this for everything she can to make this guy's life a living hell. But this guy is strong, as you're going to see, and he outwits and outlasts. It's just like Survivor. After she was with me, things got better. The bedroom came back strong as ever, and she was loving and a good wife to me. What a load of bullshit. She was putting on a giant act, dude. I can't imagine you want to tap that after all you went through with her. But I know you were young, and how you were raised and inexperienced, and also you're doing whatever you had to do for your daughter. And I do respect that, but we are in different times now. This is not the era, the time of your parents and grandparents. The era now is just a big freaking mess. I made enough for her to be a stay-at-home mom, and things were great. Little did I know, she had started drinking when I was not around. Excuse me, guys. A law enforcement job came open where I grew up, and I took it. I moved the family to that area and bought one of the homes for my family that they owned. I was making less than I was before, but I quickly rose to the ranks and soon made as much as I was before. During this time, her drinking got worse. She became verbally and emotionally abusive towards me. I only put up with it because she would try and improve. The SCX became once every 3 months, then 6 months, then 9. until I was going long stretches without it. I had women telling me I should leave her because they could see I was unhappy. Some made it known that they would be discreet if I wanted to have an affair. It was hard, but I stayed faithful even though I didn't want to. Not that I encourage cheating in any way, shape, or form, but no one would blame you given how this woman is and how she's treating you. Now, at this point, I'm sure many of you guys are thinking, why the hell didn't you just end it with her? Divorce her, all that. Well, because, as you're going to see, at the time, he would have been raked over the coals, and he was deeply worried, given that she's a drunk, amongst many other awful things about her, which you are just beginning to see, guys. He didn't do it, as you're going to see, he didn't do it because he wouldn't have the custody of the daughter, and he's doing this to protect the daughter from the mother. So he's going to endure all this shit to protect the daughter, because he knows he'd get screwed, and she would mess up the daughter, so, as you're going to see. Because I'm sure some of you are thinking this at this point. We carried on. Her drinking got worse, and she became more and more abusive. Thankfully, my daughter was still young, and though I knew the home life wasn't the best, I shuddered to think what it would be like once we went through the family court and my ex won custody. See, there you go. With me out of the picture, except for short times, I feared for my daughter. So I kept the marriage going out of fear of the family court. I knew the court was fair, even if the wife was a shitty person. Well, I wouldn't call that fair. It was more like I would be a part-time dad. That was the thing in my mind. My ex wasn't a shitty mother. She had grown into a good mother. She was just a shitty wife and a mild drinking problem. Mild my ass. And besides, that mild is going to go to a major drinking problem. I don't buy she's such a great mother. I do not buy that given the story which you've told me, which you're telling here, and I know what happens. She's just an expert at putting up a good act. And some people see what they want to see. No offense. In 2013, the drinking had become the worst it had ever been, and my marriage was unbearable. I focused on my work and made it and my daughter the focus. One day my ex told me she was leaving to go back to the home state, and I could follow her or not. She didn't care. Part of me was relieved the nightmare could end. Then I thought about my daughter. I could not let her go. I begged for them not to go. No man should beg ever. Ever, ever, ever. You may feel like it, but don't ever do it. I begged for them not to go, but she said she was going with or without me, and she was taking my daughter. She knows she has all the power. She knows that daughter, she can get whatever she wants because of your daughter. She is truly wicked. She told me to sell the house and split it with her, or sell the house and come to her home state. The joke was on her. I never transferred the house from my dad to me. My father and I did that for the very reason of what was happening. She was angered and disgusted, but she went on with the move. Her ex, drove a moving truck down, and he and his buddies loaded up with our stuff. The day they left, my daughter was in the back seat, and when I went to kiss her goodbye, she hugged me. I had not made up my mind if I was going to follow them because I knew what hell awaited me. My daughter made up her mind. She had learned to read a calendar and had one that she took with her everywhere she went. She asked, "Daddy, when will I see you again?" I choked back the tears. I told her in 2 weeks. She opened her little calendar and counted out 14 days and wrote "Daddy's home." Then looked at me and said, "You promise?" I smiled, my eyes burning with tears. "Have I ever told you a lie?" "No, Daddy," she says. She hugged me and I shut the door. My ex was getting in and I told her, "You will regret this. It may be 10 years from now, but you will regret this." And remember this line, guys, because, let me tell you, she does regret it. She told me there was nothing I could do. See? I sat on the porch of our empty house and cried. I hadn't cried since I was a kid. I was destroyed. I knew I had to leave everything I had worked for, all my friends, and even my family. I vowed I would make her regret this. Then I remember what my father always told me. Now listen to this line, guys. This is a good one. His father told him, "There is nothing more dangerous than a patient man with the fortitude to keep going, fueled by a need to make those who trespass against him pay for their wrongs." It was a long 2 weeks, and by the time I made it to the home state, I had a plan. I moved to be with my daughter, and my marriage got worse. Well, of course it got worse, because she knows she has you by the balls. She knows she can do whatever she wants, and you're not going to go anywhere to protect that girl. And therefore, she's going to be even more psycho and wicked and evil and all that, and drinking more. My ex thought I could move up to her home state and make as much money as I was in my home state. I had to start at the bottom again, and she had to work. When she had to work to help pay the bills, it set up insults that I wasn't a real man and that I was worthless. I remember my vow that I made that she would regret this and started putting my plan into motion. I made sure that she took care of all the household bills to add stress to her life. I stopped taking the initiative on household things and acted like I was incompetent in everything. I even encouraged her drinking. So he's creating a big mess. He's protecting the daughter, but he's making things difficult for her. You can take care of all the bills. Oh yeah, keep on drinking because, well, one day, this is going to make things difficult for you when we eventually divorce, and, well, you're going to see what I mean, guys. I worked long hours, took the most dangerous assignments, got my peace officer's license transferred to my new state, and worked my way up the chain. Her drinking became a nightly thing due to the stress I was putting on her. Because I had followed them, her respect for me was gone. She became downright mean. Yeah, that was the price you paid to protect your daughter, and absolutely her respect for you was all gone. Because she was treating you awful, and in her view, you were taking it. And as I say before, guys, women don't respect you, they sure aren't going to love you. So when women are bitchy and rude and disrespect a guy and he doesn't check her, doesn't call her out on that, you can expect more shit. That's what you get here. Now, I get what this guy did to protect his daughter, and it seemed like there were no other options at the time. I bought a house and some acreage to one to get us out of town so she could be as loud and belligerent as she wanted without disturbing neighbors. And two, I hate living in town and had never lived in town before. This is when she started hitting me. I never laid a hand on her. I just took what happened. She told me that if I told anyone that she would tell my job that I had hit her and that it would be the end of my law enforcement career. I told you this woman was a witch, guys. Her brother and his wife started noticing how bad it was getting. Her brother, I might add. They both begged me to leave her because she was so horrible to me. As much as I wanted to leave, I couldn't. I had vowed to make her regret it, and that was what I was going to do. Then, of course, you're protecting your daughter, because if you weren't around, she might take all her crap on your daughter. I laid around when I wasn't working. I refused to go to functions with her and just enraged her with inaction. Slowly, I noticed she was spending more and more money, drinking more and more. Soon she would drain our bank account the day after we would get paid. Since I worked nights, I would withdraw all what I needed to get me through until we got paid again. I wondered what she was doing with all the money. I feared I played my little game too long and she was saving up for an attorney. I did a little bit of snooping and found that she had $1,200 payments on high-interest loans. I had her. This was February 2019. By this time, my daughter was old enough to understand what was going on and could pick up which parent she wanted to live with after a divorce. Aha! Now the kid has a say. Perfect. The daughter loves her father to death, and the daughter can see all the turmoil and all the bad shit going on. Now the daughter has an opportunity, and the wife is in a terrible situation. Her own family can see how off the deep end she is, racking up debt. Here we go. By this time, the daughter had notices, blah, 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 and she could choose which family she wanted to live with. Up to this point, my ex-wife's behavior centered on me, but in the last months, my daughter was catching an attitude. My daughter came to me and told me it was time I divorced her. The own daughter is coming to the father and saying, "Divorce this bitch. Divorce mom." You know it's bad then. I told her that she was old enough to decide where she would live if that happened. She told me that she would live full-time with me. I told her I would give her until April if she still felt the same way, I would pull the trigger. By this time, I was living in the basement amongst storage to avoid abuse. April came, my daughter told me to do it. I can't believe you waited longer at that point, but okay. I changed my direct deposit to a new bank, called my father, and told him what was happening. Without question, he told me to find a lawyer and give him his number. The next day, I filed taxes, found the biggest bitch-busting asshole lawyer I could find, and filed. The next day, on my way to work, I told the ex I had filed for divorce and she should be getting served soon. Her mouth dropped and she asked why. She probably thought you'd never have the balls to do it. You were just biding your time. I told you would regret moving me away. She asked if we could work on it. I told her, you can work on it, but I'm done. Have been done with you since you forced me to kiss my daughter goodbye that day. It took her a month to move out. Anything she said, anything she left behind went to the dumpster. It had been 7 years. 7 years of knowing I was going to divorce her, and after 7 years of executing a well-made plan, at 39 years old, I'm free. Hallelujah and praise the Lord. 7 years. I cannot believe you endured 7 years of that wacko, that witch. I respect the hell out of you for doing that for your daughter. I wish there was another option, but I guess there was not. You weren't going to leave any chances left that your daughter would end up with her. Because, I mean, all the crap she was doing to you, your daughter would have gotten it then. At least you were like a buffer. So, in July, we had the hearing. She could not fight the divorce because she was broke from all her debts. She did not scrape up enough to retain a lawyer, but she couldn't pay him. She scraped him enough to get a lawyer, but she couldn't pay him what he needed to fight a good fight. She did not attend the hearing. The court made her take her debts. Since the house was a VA loan, it took nothing to take her off the deed, and she agreed to signing her part of the house fully to me in exchange for the car she drives now that was in my name. My daughter lives full-time with me. Awesome. They did try to argue for $1,000 for her lawyer fees and $375 child support. My lawyer said that the child was living with me and was old enough to make a decision though on paper it was a 50-50 split. The judge said because the mother has the child on paper 50% of the time, she is entitled to child support. I knew this judge through a job and had bailiffed for him on several occasions, so I knew how to talk to him. I asked to speak and said, Your Honor, I'm not going to pay a tax on a vagina that I'm not using, especially when my daughter is living with me full time. If the defendant's counsel wishes to press this motion, I will not continue with the proceedings as we have not come to an amicable compromise. I know the $1,000 is for the defendant's lawyer's fees, and I am willing to give counsel cash here before you, Your Honor. However, if we leave this room without a compromise, I will take payment. I will take payment the defendant's legal fees off the table in further negotiations. Also, further negotiations will result in me using scorched earth tactics, so neither one of us will be happy. I can bounce back, she cannot. As I walked out of the courtroom with my lawyer, I'd become friends with him, and he knew the entire story, of course. He looked at me and asked how I could have lived like that for so long. I said, there is nothing more dangerous than a patient man with the fortitude to keep going, fueled by needed to make those who trespass against him pay for their wrongs. Damn right, brother. That's a very cool line from your father. Her lawyer asked to leave to call my ex and came back to say my ex didn't want the child support. I walked out with only spending a total of $2,500 and paid off a car. My daughter is now 18 years old and she's beautiful, well-adjusted, respectable young woman with a great future ahead. That is great, man. I'm so happy after all that shit. Your daughter, A, is not screwed up, and B, you got to be with you full time and you can start over. The other day, she thanked me for not giving up on letting her grow up without a father. She said she is afraid where she would be right now if I had not been in her life. That is reward enough, and I would not have done it any differently. As for my ex, here we go, guys. Get your popcorn. As for my ex, well, she lives hand to mouth. She can't keep a job for very long, and due to her drinking, she's having horrible health problems. She was always a functioning alcoholic, but slowly that is changing. She has tried rehab, it works for a while, then she falls off. Since I left her when she was 38 years old, she has struggled to build meaningful relationships. But hey, she has her cats. Well, we can all laugh about that, but as a cat lover, I don't want cats living in a household with some wacko drunk. But anyhow, she's somebody else's problem now. But given how she's destroyed her body, I think she's probably going to drop dead at 50. He says, me? Well, I'm healing still. I went through a phase after the divorce that I had fun with as many women as I could. I dated women in their 20s to early to late 20s exclusively. It was a fun time. To guys over 40, don't believe anyone who says you can't date beautiful women 10 or even 20 years younger than you, if that is what you want to do. Keep yourself healthy and don't be intimidated. Now, 3 years after the divorce, I've decided that when it comes to women, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I've been promoted twice in my job since and now have more time to my hobbies and travel. I'm on my purpose. Life is good. Well, bro, that was one hell of a story. And holy shit, Did you go through a hell of a lot of pain and suffering to protect your daughter? And again, I do wonder if there was anything you could have done at the time to not have to do that, but I guess not. But I got to tell you, man, I am very impressed with what you do with your daughter. And I'm so happy that things worked out. And now she got to live with you. And now she's a very, adjusted, doing well young woman. And I hope that nothing but great things happen for you and your daughter and in your life. But guys, this goes to show you the shit men can go through and we can survive. We can go through hell for our loved ones and survive and start anew. He's now, you think he says 39 or 39, 40 years old, something like that. Plenty of time. Now he can focus, like he said, on his purpose, his goals, his hobbies, his interests, and have a great time. Life isn't over at 40 years old. Life isn't over after a bad marriage. You can rebuild and start over. You can do it. It takes time, but you can do it. So great story there. Great lesson to all of us about enduring hard times for our loved ones and getting through it. And also an example, like I said in the beginning, you take a long time to get to know your girl before you even consider proposing. He knew her 1 year before he proposed. And that's when her true colors came out. They can put up the act. And you know what? Guys can put up the act too. It goes both ways. But the point is, relationship guys are watching this, take your time. Take years. Find out everything about her. And then the prenups and all these other things you do if you're going to get married. And again, this shows you the shit guys go through because the unfair family courts of guys, good men, are raked over the coals because they are so in favor of the moms. And she was awful. She was the last person in the world that should be raising a daughter. I mean, she abandoned her in 1 month. Oh, my God. But she would have gotten her if this guy didn't stick around. So this is one tough motherfucker. So I have a lot of respect for you, bro. So I wish you nothing but the best and nothing but the best for your daughter. All right, guys, that is it for today. That'll be a good one. I thought you'd enjoy it. Those of you stuck around for all 31 minutes here. Be sure to comment down below. Let's let this guy know what you think about this. Send some good vibes his way. He definitely deserves this. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.